Hello and welcome, my name is David Rowley, and in this particular tutorial we're going to have a look at another painterly effect you might like to try on some of your images. Right, to make a start we're going to hit F7 on the keyboard. That opens our layers dialog box, and we're going to duplicate the background layer by dragging it over the create new layer icon, this little icon here, once, and we're going to do it again clicking on the top layer, dragging it over once again. There you are. So we now have 3 copies of Anne Hathaway's cottage in our layer stack. Right, next job. Let's come to the filter menu. We're going to drop down to blur, and we're going to come across to Gaussian blur. That opens our Gaussian blur dialog box, and what we have here is a radius set of 20 pixels. That actually looks pretty good there. If we move it back, you can see it unblurs the image. We look at the main image here as well. Always a good idea to make sure the preview is clicked so you can see it on your main image. Right, moving the radius up now a little bit more, you can see we lose detail and the colour becomes a little bit bleached out. So let's take it back to around about the 20 pixels. That looks pretty good there. We're going to click OK to that. Right, our next job. Let's come to the Layers palette, and from the Blend mode, that's this item here in the top left hand corner, we're going to click on the little downward facing arrow, and from the Blend modes options we're going to drop down and choose what we're going to choose. We're going to choose Darken. That's what we're going to choose. He says losing his place. There you go. There you can see the effect now beginning to come through. But the great thing with this particular technique is we've got complete control over it. Let's hit Control and L, or Image Adjustments Layers. Levels, even. There you are. You can see we've got our levels palette, and we've got a few of the darker pixels missing, so we're going to grab hold of the slider. Now moving it this way, we're going to darken our image down. So we're just going to move it into that area there. Now let's click on the lighter slider, moving this in, so we've now got a full complement of pixels. Now using the center slider, we can move it, and if we move it to the right, we're introducing more of the lighter pixels, which will brighten our image up. Or if we move it to the, sorry, did I say the right? I mean to the left. And, well, I've got L and R on my wellies. And if we move it to the right, we're going to introduce more of the darker pixels. Let me show you what I mean. There you are. That's brightening our image up nicely that way, and that darkens it down by taking it that way. Right, so let's lighten it up to round about that area there. That looks pretty good. What do you think? Round about there? Yep. Okay, click OK to that. Now if you just click it on and off, you can see the difference that's made to our image. It's just a nice subtle effect so far. One other thing, we cannot continue to work with this layer, and I'll show you the reason why. That's the way it looks. So what we have to do now is drop it down onto the layer underneath. Darken will then become normal, and we can continue working. Let me show you what I mean. Let's come to the Layers palette. We're going to drop down, or Layers menu, and choose Merge Down. This will merge our top layer down with our background layer. So we're going to click on this, and you watch it will drop down, and Darken will become normal. There you are. Now if I switch it on and off, you can see the effect, and we've no longer got that transparent looking image. Right, now for the next stage. Clicking on the background layer, dragging it over the create new layer icon. There you are. So we now have 3 layers again, switching off the top layer, otherwise we will not see what we're doing. And we can't have that, can we? No. Let's come to the filter menu again, to artistic, this time to cutout. There's our cutout dialog box. Now at this particular stage we can put our cursor and we can move our way around, or let's press on the minus, and this is going to take us out, which will enable us to see a better portion of our image, around to about 16% I think. He says going a bit further. Go on please, thank you. There, you see that line flashing underneath, that says it's recalculating all the bits and pieces. And if waiting for it, go on, thank you. That actually looks pretty good there. It readjusts every time you move it around on the cursor. Let's just take the number of levels up to 6, see what that actually does. It's always worth experimenting, and it tends to vary every time you use it. That actually looks pretty good there, a number of levels of 6. He says, yep. Add simplicity, let's drop this down to 2 and see what this does, and you can see the little preview there is what we're after. That looks good there. Add fidelity we'll leave at 2. Let's click OK to that. That is now applying our find edges. You can see find edges, our cutout filter, he says, as it belts across at a rate of knots. Job done. There you are. There's the filter. You can see it's now coming into position. Right, now click on the top layer, and now what we're going to do is zoom in using Control Spacebar to round about that area there, and we're now going to reduce the opacity down of our top layer, so we're going to blend it with the layer underneath. So just reducing this down, So if I take it right the way down, it goes to the cutouts. We just want to keep some of that detailing, some of that nice detailing in the roof there. You can see the effect it's having on the greenery, the shrubbery, the trees. That's looking pretty good. Right, zooming out using Alt Spacebar. Next job looks a little bit on the flat side, so let's come down, let's lift our layers palette up. Going to click on the layer adjustment icon, and we're going to come down to levels once again. There's our levels dialog box, always worth trying it. Just going to hit auto. Does a nice job, some nice colours have come back there, and don't forget, if we move it to the left, we're going to introduce more of the lighter pixels, to the right the darker pixels. We're going to brighten it up slightly to around about that area there. That looks good there. Click OK to that. Coming down again to the layer adjustments, and we're going to pick on hue saturation just off the screen there, but believe me, it is there. And let's take this up to about plus 16, plus 17, some nice colours going on there. There you are, and you can see the difference those two have made to this particular image, brighten it up nicely. And what we're now going to do is create a new empty layer above this again, so we can continue to work in layers. Now the beauty of this is, if you save your image in layers, and you look a little bit later on and you think, gosh, I've overdone those colours, well, just double click on the hue saturation, up it pops, and you can readjust it. Fantastic. Right, so coming down, clicking on the create new layer icon, in it goes. By default it is called layer 1. Now holding down and pressing down Alt on the keyboard, we're going to come to layer, dropping down to merge visible. This is going to merge all the visible layers together. In other words, all the layers in the layers palette with the little eye icon on it, it'll merge into one new layer. Quick and as easy as that. If I just switch these off, there you are, you can see it's all been merged into one new layer. Terrific stuff. And to finish our image, we're just going to come to filter, texture, texturizer. There you are, you can see the texture being added to our image there, and that's canvas. Little drop down menu, we've also got brick, burlap, sandstone's probably my favourite of these, so it gives a nice textured effect there. Click OK. The default is 100, the relief is 4. Let's just apply it at those. Now let's come in, you can see we're at 33.33 of our image, or percent. Let's zoom in to 100, a little bit beyond there, to 100, or click on print size if you've got the hand tool selected. You can see the way the texture's looking, a little bit heavy. So let's come to the edit menu, fade texture, and let's just drop the opacity down on the fade dialog box. You can actually take it out altogether. But let's pull it back to around about probably about 65, 70 I would think. Yep, that looks good there. Click OK to that. While we're in here, let's just have a look around. You can see that effect we've got there. Looks pretty good. Suits this image. Zooming out using Alt Spacebar. Let's get rid of all the tools by hitting the Tab key and pressing Ctrl 0 to put it full screen. There you are, there's our finished image. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. The start image for this particular one is on the CD from Digital Photo, so go on, give it a try, or use it on your own images. Anyway, have fun, and until the next time, take care.